Okay, everybody, here we go. It is me, Gregory Mannarino, Monday, October 2nd, 2023. I want to thank all of you who step up and support my work on the first of every month. I really appreciate that. All right, so with that said, people, we have a lot to talk about. This is my pre-market report. You and I have sat here and talked about the issues which are, honestly, beyond belief at this time, and it's about to get a little bit worse. How about a lot bit worse? And I want to discuss that with you. Let's start off with that just real quick. You and I, again, have sat here and discussed the issue with the banks for quite a long time. Now, I'm going to show you a chart. I'm going to go over some basic, easy to understand information to explain how dire the situation is. The financial system of the world, which is run by central banks, they run the economy, they run the financial markets, they run the financial system, and their link to the public is clearly the commercial banks, banks that take deposits from people here. I'm not talking about credit unions, which operate kind of in a different way than a commercial bank. Credit unions operate in a not-for-profit mechanism. That's not the case here with commercial banks, all the big banks, all the Wall Street banks, okay? These institutions are in more trouble than you could possibly imagine. I'm going to show you right now how these banks are going to need at least a $17 trillion bailout. You heard that right. A $17 trillion bailout, but that's not even enough to cover what is about to unfold. Now let's talk about that. Just to outline just real quick, this is right off of the Federal Reserve's own website. This shows the current liabilities. Again, hidden in plain sight. I always tell you that. Federal Reserve's own website. The current liabilities on the books of the commercial banks collectively. That number, in case you can't read it, is just over $22 trillion. This is debt liabilities that the commercial banks owe. We're talking about bonds, corporate debt, and a whole bunch of other things as well. So keep that number in mind. Right now, the commercial banks collectively owe over $22 trillion in debt liabilities. Now, if we were to look at the total assets, okay, we have to weigh what these institutions owe against what they're worth and to try to figure out, what the net comes out to. Make sense? Well, in case you were wondering, just by some coincidence, if you were to take the total assets of these institutions, it pretty much zeroes out. In other words, debt liabilities just over 22 trillion. And their total value, which includes their property and everything else, about the same. However, these institutions also, I guess you could say, owe you, the depositors, cash which you so gracefully put into these institutions. That number, in case you were wondering, comes out to about $17 trillion. So what does that mean? It means these institutions are, by their own numbers, just some basic math here, in a hole for $17 trillion. Or should I say you, all of us are in a hole for $17 plus trillion. Do you understand why I've been explaining to you to get your cash out of these institutions? They're absolutely insolvent. They are operating in a vacuum. No surprise. What would you expect in an environment where we don't even have a reserve system anymore? It's a zero reserve system. All the cash you think that is in these institutions that you gracefully give to them to hold for you, it's not there. Okay, so again, let's just sum this up. Debt liabilities collectively for the commercial banks over 22 trillion. Their total assets about the same. So right now we're at zero. Right now they have a zero net worth, a zero net. Now take out deposits or what they owe you, and there comes another $17 trillion. Imagine my shock, imagine your shock. And let me tell you this real quick. I personally don't think these numbers are actually correct, because I was trying to quantify what these banks have on their books with regard to commercial real estate. Couldn't find it. I would believe this number is much, much larger. But again, at a minimum, these institutions well, they're going to need to be bailed out, because again, even if they were to sell all their assets based against what they're allowing us to know they owe, it's zero. They have a zero value. You understand? It's amazing, isn't it? But this stuff is just so in our face, people. It's out of control. $17 trillion. So, well, you can imagine who's going to pay for that. I'm going to give you one guess. You are. Let us move forward here. How about on the economic front? Global manufacturing is in a steep downturn. Okay, this is pretty evident to you and I. We've known this since I don't know how freaking long. It's not going to stop. It's going to get much worse as the world economy grinds to a halt. You understand? It's not a very pretty picture. Now, with regard to commodity prices, something I've been speaking about for the longest time, let's talk about OPEC, okay? OPEC is saying that we can expect the price of crude oil to go higher from here. Can I please get a duh and maybe a couple of more duh, okay? Is this supposed to be some kind of a surprise to you and me? Wait a minute. No! People, look, this is the game. Crude oil, the lifeblood of the military-industrial complex, the lifeblood of the system. And let me tell you something else about OPEC here. In case you don't know, these oil-producing nations here, which are now being absorbed into the BRICS system, as the BRICS system tries to corner energy. Again, you know what this is all about, dethrone the dollar. How many of you would be surprised to know that OPEC has untold investments in crude oil? In other words, they not only produce this stuff and invest in it, they're betting that it's going to go higher and much higher. Do you think that's right? This has got to be the most egregious form of insider trading in the history of the world. But that's the way it is. What else would you expect in this kind of an environment as well? With that said, let's look over here at the market. Stock futures this morning are lower, not by much, but lower nonetheless, pointed towards a lower open. Stocks don't start trading for just over an hour from the time I am doing this lovely video blog. Okay. Risk in this market is rising. Okay. We have an MMRI just over 306. As I said, futures lower, risk higher. 10-year yield, I wrote this down, 4.63. Relative strength of the dollar higher this morning. Crude oil, oh, I'm so shocked about this. Higher. Oh, yeah, over $91 a barrel yet again. Gold and silver getting hit pretty good this morning. Cryptocurrencies are catching a bid, and this is all freaking lovely here. All right, that's it. We have set the stage. Now, I want to hear from you. Let's start off with this. Again, we covered this at the beginning. Bank liabilities, their debt, what they owe out, over $22 trillion. Their total net value, okay, I mean, except for the debt, about the same. This comes out to a net of zero, their current value, and plus they owe you and me and everybody else just over $17 trillion. Where do you think that cash is coming from? The banking system is coming down. The banking system is being consolidated. Does this sound familiar to you? I've only been saying this for I don't know how many months now. I hope I'm getting through to all of you out there, and I think I am. At least I hope so. With regard to everything else, people, look, we're in the right spots. Okay, we couldn't possibly be better off, you and me, betting against the debt, becoming our own central banks, raising our awareness, knowing who the enemy is and what they're trying to pull off. You think this is going to stop? You think OPEC also is part of the enemy pact, betting against you, making sure that you pay more for everything, inflating prices? Is not going to stop. Oh yes, are you watching the news this morning? The rah-rah-rahs and the cheering. Oh yes, they kicked the can down the road. Our loving, caring representatives for another 45 days, as I think most of you know already. They got nothing solved. Tell me again why we need these people to so-called represent us. They don't do a damn thing, okay? I tell you, people, what a twisted world we are in. All right, this guy here loves you a lot from the heart. I mean that again. Thank you to those of you, especially to those of you that do support my work. It's like a fraction. It's 1/10 of 1%, and I'm being gracious here, who do actually support this work, my work every month. That is with a $5 donation. I know most of you can't do it, and that's okay too. I got your back anyway, I promise you. All right, with that said, people, again, thank you. Love you a lot. Ponder these things. And we will certainly meet later, 4:05 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time for my live stream. I hope to see you there. Have some questions ready for me and answer these questions. What do you think about this? Well, I'll see you later.